Week 4, Coach Show here with Coach Brandon Smith. Big win this week against Greenwood, 33-19. Offense scored right before half, making the score 16-13. What was the message to the coaching staff and players going into half?
Well, I mean, it was a little doom and gloom. You could tell because we hadn't played well, and so when you get a young team, you can't go in there and yell at them and all these type things because we still have a lot of guys that are inexperienced at big positions. So I didn't feel it was a situation where we need to go in there and hoop and holler and all those type things. So it was more of a calm down, take the emotion out of it, go through your progressions, lock into your keys and your reads and those type things, and then just execute. So probably not quite what you might think it was, but there was definitely a sense of urgency though, for sure. Yeah.
So we was talking before we got started about penalties. So how did penalties affect the game? And as a coach, how do you address that issue moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we had, at least from our tally, 23 penalties for 235 yards. I mean, it's hard to do much of anything if that's the case. So, yeah, I mean, we've addressed it. We talked about it, and I thought some of it was questionable, and then some of it we deserved. And so, but the main thing is what we talk about all the time is as a player, you have to adapt to how the game's being called. I mean, you can be stuck in your ways and, go down the road we did last week, or you can adapt to how a game's being called. And we did a really poor job of that. We didn't adjust to that, but it's hard to get any sort of rhythm, offensively or defensively, if it's just constantly disrupted by penalties. And so, we were just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot the whole night.
So we'll get to the offensive side of the ball. 395 total yards, 147 rush yards, 230 pass yards, and 33 points scored. Quarterback Camden Page was 23 or 27 passing. So he has a completion percentage of 70% on the year. How is him being that accurate with the ball led to the offensive success through 3 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good completion percentage for a quarterback, And I think, like you said, his completion percentage was really high Friday, even though it really didn't feel like it, during the game. And again, I think that's because what we already talked about, just the drives kept getting interrupted. But he's doing a good job of taking what the defense giving him, not trying to play hero ball. I think that's something that a lot of young quarterbacks get caught up in, and so he's giving the ball to the guys and letting them make plays for them, and that's pretty much what quarterback's all about.
So I know you want to see obviously improvement going on through the year if y'all want to get to where you want to be, which is ultimately win the state championship. So through three games this year, the offense put up 117 points, averaging 408 yards per game, which is obviously really good. But what are some things you'd like to see the offense maybe clean up or improve on for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I don't think through 3 games, I don't think we've played a real clean football game yet. I mean, against Manual, we had a lot of missed assignments where guys weren't doing the right thing. We really didn't have that problem against Greenwood. We just had a boatload of penalties and turnovers, and so right now at this stage, we're still preaching. Play a clean game, give yourself a chance. Attempt to do the right thing on each play. Take negative yardage plays out of the game, and just kind of see what we're capable of. So we're still kind of in the infancy stage of offensive, where we're just trying to get through that point to where we progress on as the year goes along.
We'll move over to the defense side of the ball. 154 total yards, 61 rush yards, 93 pass yards, and again a lot of tackles for loss, 11 this past week. So defense is averaging 10.6 tackles for loss per game. How big of a factor has that played in the success y'all have had early in the season?
Yeah, I think that's something we've kind of hung our hat on around here for a long time. Is kind of the opposite of offenses. Defensively, we're aggressive to try to get those TFLs and get guys behind the sticks and dictate the situation. And there's times where you pay the price for playing aggressive defense, and but I think overall it's benefited us. That's kind of our mentality. I really don't think we had that mentality Friday. I think that those guys, didn't execute like they were capable of. And we made it's kind of the reverse of defensively. We made a lot of missed assignments. Execution wasn't great, and so again, you're kind of in the early stages where you're just trying to clean everything up, get everything smooth before we start progressing on.
So speaking on the defense side of the ball, obviously a good start to the season so far. What's one position group on defense that you think has done a good job week in and week out to help this defense be where they're at through the third game of the season?
Well, that's a good question. I really think that each group has had a game where they've done better than the rest of them. Like I said, our D line played really well against Manual, and then last week they didn't play as well. I thought the linebackers played really well, against Bryan Station, and then not as well last week. But our DBs have probably been the most consistent to this point. I think there's areas to improve, but we've got 3 out of the 4 returning starters, so they're kind of past that stage of inexperience and learning what to do. Those guys kind of know what's going on, so you expect a little more out of them.
So upcoming game this week is against Bowling Green. They're 0-3, searching for the first win. What do you expect from your team this week? And also, do you think being the first home game that'll have an impact on the guys' emotions playing at home for the first time this year?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there is nothing 0-3 about. I mean, I don't know that's what the record is, but they're far from 0-3. I mean, they're probably the best 0-3 team in the country, honestly. So. And they're starting to figure some things out. And I think in terms of emotion for our players, I know technically last week wasn't a home game, but it might as well be. And so I think that's kind of over with, hopefully anyways. And, this game is always a big game. It's a big rivalry game. But, I think, again, it's a little bit different because we're at the point where, it's not week 9 or 10. We're at week 4 where, we got to worry about ourselves. We got to solve our own issues before we can start worrying about other people. And so we're kind of still in that stage of we got to get ready for, November. And so it's a little bit different type of game, I guess, than it has been years past. So I don't expect the same amount of emotion from our players as it has been in years past, just because there's some differences there.
So top-notch fan question of the week. Why, after every game, does all the players and coaches raise their arms in there? Like every picture after with the score and everything, I see that y'all have y'all's hands in there.
That's a good question. That is a long-standing tradition, and I actually took that from my father when he was at Boyle County. I played for him, and we always did it. And so my first game here, I was thinking about what do you do after the first win? And so I did it, and then every time we've won, we've just done it ever since. And so it's just become a long-standing tradition, and I think it's cool that they've adopted it at the lower level. So it's just kind of our thing now that we do.
So top-notch players of the week, offensive player of the game, Jake Carter, 11 receptions, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns. Defensive player of the game, Ryley Oller, 8 total tackles, 5 solo, 3 assisted. What did you see from those 2 guys this past week? Why'd you pick them for the players of the game?
Yeah, I thought, last week in practice, it wasn't our best week of practice. And, coming into the game, you could tell that we didn't have everybody to focus to the level that they needed to be. So I thought those 2 guys, you could tell pregame, they were locked in, ready to go. And then their performance showed, especially Jake offensively had some really big plays. And then Ryley, did a really nice job on defense. So I think those guys, practiced like that. They were ready to go all week, and then they played like it on Friday.
Well, that wraps up week 4 of the Coaches Show. This is the first home game of the year. We will be set up here with our tent. We will be doing a giveaway. So come by to our tent so you can enter to win the giveaway. Again, we will be giving away a free system at the end of the year, so make sure you're liking, sharing, subscribing to all of our content.